Hallelujah, everyone. My name is Thozama Busakwe, and today I am at the Market Theatre for episode 2 of Beyond the Story. Let's go. Can you use art to generate a wealth that no one can take away from you? And can art lead to destiny moments? Let's explore these issues with Camilla Waldman. And the Joburg skies have cleared up for us to have this really huge moment. This is Beyond the Story, a conversation that is shared beyond the curtains of the theater. I am excited to have my guest here. Camilla, shall we?
Thank you.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Camilla, welcome to Beyond the Story.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I've been waiting to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
I remember we had a brief one last year when you did the sonnets, right?
Right.
So
yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you
now
so much.
in person.
So nice, because the last time we were on Zoom.
Yeah.
So we're kind of speaking to each other across
Virtual
the
reality.
distances of lockdown. And so, yeah, very nice to see you too.
And I'm excited
Thank you.
that you are coming back once again with another beast of a work, but another one that will revolutionize how we think once again about the theater.
Thank you.
Talk to me about Rose, Camilla. What is Rose all about? Let's start there.
Thozama, Rose is written by Martin Sherman.
Yeah.
He's well known for many of his works, probably best known for a play that he wrote called Bent, which then became a very well-known screenplay. So Rose is a one-woman play. Inspired on its very first page, it says it's dedicated to Elizabeth Shapiro. I each night as I go on stage, I'm reminded of her name. I don't know who she was to Martin, but my understanding was that she was his grandmother, and that he'd been very inspired by her story. So whilst the story is not a documentary, so it's he's obviously written into it and evolved her as a character. So Rose is a survivor, Thozama. Really, she tells us the story. We meet her at 80 years old, and she's sitting on a bench in her Miami Beach apartment.
Oh yes.
Whilst, of course, what's beautiful about Malcolm Perky's direction is that there's something quite. She could be anywhere. She's sitting on a bench. She could be in the middle of the city. She could be transiting between this life and the next. You're not quite sure. There's a kind of very stripped down a woman on a bench talking. And so she tells you her life story. Only at the end of the story do you fully realize why she's sitting on this bench. And she is, without giving the entire story away, Rose is sitting Shiva.
Yeah.
And Shiva is a Jewish celebration of somebody who's passed. It's a sit for a week.
I'm happy you used that term celebration and not a period of grieving or a period of mourning, because then it's all like puts the gloom in it. I'm happy that you used the word celebrate, because then although they have passed, but their life is yet to be celebrated.
You're
still
right,
to be celebrated.
Thozama. That's I think so much. I'm glad that you pick up on it, because I think that's so much of her story is that she says I sit. So as the tradition is, you sit on a bench for a week, and you laugh. And you remember, you might cry, you might argue, you might reflect, you might have a whole lot of things that you want to say to this person, or as you recall their lives, or you recall their meaning in your life. And it is a celebration. I think that's really and truly what the ritual of Shiva is about. Is about giving yourself a space to mourn, to celebrate, so she sits and really, and in this process, tells us as an audience her story, the story of her life. And as she's telling, there are certain important themes that she'll keep revisiting, which have really, when you finally understand what her final Shiva is about, they all kind of come together.
Talk to me about the cultural references, because when I saw the play, there were a lot of Jewish cultural references, Yiddish as well, and you know it is set in a particular period. Talk to me about some of the cultural references within this piece that I guess we will also like just enjoy taking home with us.
Right. I also enjoyed Thozama because I must say I'm half Jewish. By that I mean is that my father and grandmother were Jewish, but as it happened, my family got very kind of split up. So I actually, as a child, didn't grow under the Jewish arms. I was kind of between countries, between spaces, between religions, between cultures, so didn't really have any real belonging anywhere. And so the idea of belonging has been a very important theme in my own life, and so coming to Rose has been very, very rich experience for me, because I've had to research a whole lot of things that I didn't know the detail of. Whilst I knew a little bit about Shiva, I knew a little bit about Yiddish, I knew, so there was bits and pieces, but I obviously needed to understand much more fully. So yes, and I think it's a very interesting theme in the play, because she grew up in Russia. She speaks Yiddish, and later, in a conversation, or actually argument, an ideological argument with her son, who at the time is now living in the nation of Israel and speaking Hebrew, and so there's this ideological discussion between them where she says, "I'm Yiddish. I speak Yiddish. I'm very proud of that as a civilization, as a way of thinking that's inspired a lot of things." And he's saying, well, but we're standing in the future. We're standing in a new place. We don't speak Yiddish anymore. We speak Hebrew. And so whilst he's kind of marching into the future, and she recognizes that and absolutely says, I understand that you must march into the future, as each young new generation must. But at the same time says, but we can't forget what we were. Because if we forget what we were, then we're without past, we're without history.
Would you then say comes in the relevance of this play? Because I wanted to ask, if it was a period piece that was set in that particular time, what then would be the relevance of it now, when we are such at a pivotal moment as a global society? I think we're such in a pivotal moment. What would be the relevance of such narratives?
Thozama, every night in the play there's a moment where she speaks about her son saying to her, your world is dead. He says to her, your world is over. We can't carry you. He says, your shadows of the past, the suffering of what's been is too much. Therefore, we must move forward. And every time in that moment in the play, I'm reminded of South Africa specifically, because I often hear people say things like, oh no, we can't go on about the past. You mustn't talk about the past so much. We must look forward. We must see a vision to the future. And I think any country, whilst I reference South Africa, I think globally, as you say, we all identify with that. This idea of, the new generation must go forward.
Yeah, and the constant shifts.
But we can't forget what has been. Dr. Maya Angelou says, if we are to really carve a new future, we stand in our present, and in our present we must recognize the scars of what's been before. We can't say to our elders or those that have experienced a very different reality, oh, it's over, it's not important anymore, because actually there is so much to learn for us by acknowledging and then taking that into our present. So I think stories like Rose and our history plays, our South African theatre plays that belong to another time are a very important part of our young people's experience. I really believe that. Because it's by recognizing, you realize how far we've come. you realize what freedom really means.
And how far we haven't come,
And
Camilla.
how far we haven't come. Thozama, that's I think part of what makes Rose so sad.
Yeah.
I think that's also its relevance. I have to say that last night came off the play, and Lebesa Molapo is the stage manager, who's just the loveliest man, and he kind of put up the volume of the music, and it's this beautiful Yiddish violin music, and suddenly I felt so sad. There was this music filling the space, and we were just packing up. And I felt the same as you, was what you've just said, Thozama. There's moments where you think, you know, Rose, your story, I wish it was just the past.
Yeah.
I wish in a way I could say, you know what, thank you for your story to remind us of what's been. We stand somewhere new. But of course the sadness in moments is, oh my word, we still meet discrimination, we still meet prejudice, we still meet so much of what your story is about.
True.
And so yes, at times it becomes like a bittersweet experience,
Right.
can I say?
True,
you know what I mean?
True,
Yeah.
because then for me, there's also this thing about Rose that almost became a very powerful cathartic moment, you know, because there's something very powerful about standing inside a room when someone is telling their story, and you get to hear it from your point of view. But not just that, there's something that shifts deep down on the inside of you, and you have all these questions that bubble up to the surface, you know, that put a particular demand on you to be a different person. Would you say Rose is that for a lot of women who maybe identify with Rose, a lot of women who are from if you look at the South African past of apartheid, you know, have gone through so many horrors and are now facing the horrors of gender-based violence? Would you say that Rose could be a cathartic moment for those as well?
Absolutely. No, Thozama. And I think not only for women. I truly.
I had my cathartic moment too.
There you go. No, but I've actually been amazed. I have to say, Thozama, I've been very moved by. I've had some beautiful commentary from young South African men who've responded to the play, and that's been quite amazing to me because I didn't expect that. I was actually worried in moments. I thought, would they relate? Will the play feel maybe too specific?
Yeah.
You know, maybe a story that's difficult for you to get into. And I do have to say, Thozama, that it is a very brilliant script. Martin Sherman's writing is truly superb.
True.
So it tells a very good story, and it tells it in an amazing way.
Yeah.
So I think that helps, because as you listen, the words are rich and deep, and they evoke things in people. But yes, Thozama, I do think that for people sitting, witnessing, look, it's hard work. I have to say, I celebrate everybody who's coming to the theatre at this point, and they're sitting through 2 hours. I mean, like, you know, it's long, and you know, to sit, to listen, and you're just listening to somebody talk on a bench. You know, there's nothing else really. You've just got the words.
There's no wahala that comes with this. And we're always used to that, right? Because we always come in the theatre, well, most of the time we come to the theatre for a deep and this entertaining pleasure.
Exactly, and visuals and lights and all of that. But I think it's what you're saying is that I think what happens is that as you're listening to the story, things are bubbling up, as you say, inside yourself. So you kind of, you're listening and you're processing, and things are kind of coming up inside you, and you're thinking about it, and you clock back in, and you know what I mean. So I think in that way, the experience becomes quite a personal one for the audience as well, because there's this kind of suddenly this very quiet, still space where you're suddenly listening to somebody, and you might come in and out of the story. And as you're listening, images in your mind are awakened, and you're thinking about things in your own life, and you're reminded of people. And I think that's what makes the experience then a personal one. Yeah, and evocative for somebody.
And we are continuing the conversation right here on Beyond the Story with the amazing Camilla Waldman. She's giving us nuggets and nuggets that come from the hit production Rose right here at the Market Theatre. But before we continue with the conversation, I want to give you an opportunity to really indulge Camilla as she performs live on the Bunny Simon stage. And the way that you can do that is if you answer a very simple question. Might not be that simple for many of us, but I think it should be simple. So I call this the Shades of Great. Shades of Great, that's what I call it. Now, all you have to do is to decide what color matches Camilla Waldman's personality. Now, I'm going to give you a rundown of the colors that I do have. We've got gray for powerful, mysterious and provocative. And I've got orange for optimistic, friendly, and perceptive. I've got green for peaceful, serene, and accommodating. And I've got purple for creative, expressive, and emotive. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize them. I'll write them on the description down below. And all you have to do is to sound off on the comments, and you stand a chance of winning 2 tickets to a high tea titled A Rose by any other name. And it will be inclusive of a masterclass by none other than Camilla Waldman herself. Now let's continue the conversation. What color do you think I am?
Oh, Thozama. Well, because you're wearing orange today. I gotta say, I think, maybe a beautiful orange.
Orange,
you're vibrant, right? You're hot. Yeah, it's lovely.
Oh, I thank you, but this is your moment. Let me not take away the spotlight.
You're welcome, we share.
Right, and we were having a wonderful conversation about identity, Camilla, just before the cameras were rolling. And I think I want us to go into that because part of what I love about Rose is how sexually expressive she is. Right. You know, does it come with age?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure. I think certainly for Rose it is. I mean, she does say somewhere in the play that, you know, at the beginning when she first met her love of her life and her first husband, he was very direct. I'm not going to say the words, but and she says she blushed and she didn't quite know, and it was obviously her first experience of love and her first experience of desire. So and then as she grows, she does become a lot more expressive. However, I do think there's something about Rose's character right from the beginning. Yeah. She does say to us, right at the beginning of her story, she says, I loved words. I loved to express. I loved to try to explain the world. So I do think that in many ways I think she was quite open.
And quite wild.
Quite wild.
Wild in
I agree. And it's quite refreshing. I mean, even a few audience people have said, it's a bit alarming at first. You kind of this old lady. She's out there, man. And then you kind of settle in with her and you realize, okay, there's no holds barred here. She's got no sacred cows.
No sacred cows whatsoever.
Nothing's going to be... And
I love the fact that no stone is left unturned. And I really want to urge younger people to come and see this piece because it's not just a piece for the older generation. It's also for us. I mean, we live in a time where we are sexually expressive ourselves. I mean, with a lot of gay men now starting to come out, transgender people now starting to really embrace who they are. That's really an amazing tip that Rose really touches on, and I think we all need to experience that because for a while I couldn't describe my desires and now I can just by watching Rose. Isn't that amazing?
I think she'd be absolutely delighted. But I think also, you know, she says it, Thozama, she says at a point, she says, is it restless people that produce restless minds? And I think from her description, she's saying people who don't necessarily belong, people who don't have a place. She questions, she says, is it because you don't have a place in a way, does it mean that your mind actually goes into a lot of different places because it's not fixed. And so in some ways she's talking specifically in her history, she is talking about the Jewish movement, about people who didn't have a place, who wandered and were homeless and were displaced. And as a result of that, their minds actually were very open. Their minds were because there was nothing that would actually define it and say, oh no, it has to be this or it has to be that. And I think in that regard, I think a lot of young people now would really relate to that. A feeling of, as much as they might have grown in something that felt with a very strong belonging, but what happens if your mind is asking different questions? You're wanting to go into other places. Oh yes, your sexuality is one that is different to the one that you grew with or around you. And so there's a restlessness, a feeling of, hang on a second, I need to know more. I want to experience. I want to, find another tribe perhaps. Maybe I identify. And maybe part of what Rose is saying is, maybe you can be one and other. You don't have to be only here.
Yes.
And you don't only have to be defined by this.
It's a yes.
Do you know
for
what I
me.
mean? Yeah. Which for me as well. Thozama, in many ways that's been part of my own liberation, is recognizing where I felt a lot of sadness in my life by feeling like I didn't belong. But I wanted to belong to, like say, okay, I'm a this, or I'm a that, or I want to be that. And I would often look at other people who had that, and I would be I want that sense of community. And whilst I think that's an amazing thing, and I think community, I celebrate that, but I also recognize that, hey, okay, so if you didn't have that, but you can be part of that, and you can be part of, And a beautiful a quote by a Palestinian woman I read the other day, where she said, "My body has become my place of belonging." If you've experienced so much displacement and so much movement, and she said, well, maybe actually I belong to my body of land. I belong to this, right? And I'm a lot of things.
That is power right there.
Very
And
powerful.
it brings me to my next point, because Camilla, if you look at it, and if you look at the climate within our industry now, I mean, look at the artists who are striking at the NAC offices, who are restless right now because things are not going the way that we want them to go, Camilla. And if you look at a child right now who wants to enroll and to study drama, they go into their parents and they tell them, listen here, this is the path that I want to take, and immediately they tell them, why would you want to be poor for the rest of your life? How do we use art, Camilla, to build a wealth that cannot be taken away from us?
Thozama, that's a big question, and one that I would not be able to answer fully. But from my own perspective, I will say this. As a teacher, and I have been a teacher with actors all my life, as an actor. Alongside that, they've run parallel. And there have been many times where our parents have come to me and said, oh no, what do we do? Our child wants to be, an artist or creative or an actor. And Thozama, I always find myself saying to them, let them experience themselves. Let them go towards the learning that really calls at them. Because my experience of life is when young people connect with what is really important to them, they flourish. And the doors open in their lives. They find meaning and purpose. And often, Thozama, the creative process is one that evolves. So you might find a young person who wants to begin as an actor, enters into the learning, and actually discovers they're a writer. Actually, they want to direct. Oh no, they actually want to make film. They want to edit. Oh no, they actually they want to create and raise money for the creative arts. Oh, they're actually a creative business person. Oh, and so it goes. But I think when we start to answer the calls inside us, the calls that say, this is what I really want to do. This is my vision. Those places are the places of growth. And I always commend parents who encourage young people to go to that which really drives them. Because it's from there that their journeys will unfold.
Yeah.
I'm saddened to say that it's the young people who have not been able, who are really feel like the doors are blocked, and they have to go into things that possibly they didn't want to do. I often see much more damage happening there.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, there's loss and displacement, and who am I, and I don't belong, and then we get a whole lot of other things that start to happen, which become a lot more destructive. So, Thozama, I can't answer that other than to say that South Africa has a wealth of talent.
Yeah.
We have a history of incredible artists who were part of the struggle, who were part of the freedoms of this country. So we must continue. And look at Thozama, who's just about to star with Viola Davis. You know what I'm saying?
And that
We're
is a
seeing South
moment.
Africans breaking ground, and they're breaking ground as South Africans.
I love
That's
that.
what's very powerful. I'm not saying amazing things that have happened to pioneers internationally,
Yes.
but often have had to kind of hide their South Africanness in a way to become kind of a
Almost
something
mask
other,
it as something else, yeah.
to try to break
Yeah.
in, to become
Yeah.
more American or to
Yeah.
become something. What we're seeing in somebody like Thuso is she's absolutely authentically herself. She is an incredible South African queen, and she is out there, and
Listen.
she's going to be meeting Viola Davis.
How amazing! And she's one of my favorite
Me
people,
too.
by the way.
Oh, what an incredible woman. What an
And
incredible
you were
woman.
right after her. You were right behind her in terms of the I guess the caliber of who you are and how you carry yourself and how you respect your art. Because I think if there's one thing about art that you can't just do it, there needs to be a respect that comes with it, and that dignity of your artistry then just oozes through your pores. So I really think that you were right up in line, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are envying me right now sitting right next to you. But I do want to ask, have there ever been moments where you needed courage? Besides the fact that I understand that you, at some point, you did feel like you did not belong, and were there other moments that you felt like, now this, I need divine courage?
All the time, Thozama, all the time. I do think that the creative process needs courage, Thozama. I don't think it's an easy journey. I think often creative people are often people who connect with their worlds, often feel the pain of the world, the despair, the hopelessness, and it's not an easy journey. And I have to say, if it weren't for my faith, I ask God for courage every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
To be fearless in the face of fear. So that's an ongoing thing, Thozama. I do think that we need to be the courage to be yourself,
Yeah.
to believe that this is my road, and let me stand to this.
Yes.
I celebrate others as I stand in my own ground. So yes, Thozama, many times. I grew up in a time where my family didn't approve of being an actor. I know all of those things. I'm twice married, twice divorced,
Oh my
2 children,
God.
single mother, lots of mistakes.
And those are the stories that follow you around, right?
Lots of things I really failed at and
Yeah.
didn't do good at. So yes, courage is something every day. I ask God for courage.
And I think what I'm getting from you is a sense that we really need to stand on top of our stories and not in our stories, because the moment that you rest in the story itself and that moment, it is not necessarily going to propel you forward. It will always be a fortress because you want to hide yourself. But the moment you stand on top of it, you become this really big giant, and you understand that it is not in spite of your story that you get to stand, but it is because of your story that you get to stand so tall. And before I get to my two big questions, two final big questions, I want to know, and I'm sure everyone else wants to know, what kind of music do you listen to?
Gospel. I know.
I love a good hill song. Don't judge yourself.
I love gospel. I have to say, I really love South African gospel.
Amazing.
I love choral voices.
Ooh.
So like this Soweto Gospel Choir, Joyous Celebration. I'm loving Kelly Kumalo and
powerful voice.
where powerful and the feet where Klingy where joins her. I think it's I don't want to say the song wrong, but it's so beautiful. Kelly starts and then Klingy she joins in and then she's like it's beautiful. So I like gospel. I really do. I love, as I say, I love powerful choral voice. And yes, I love Bethel, and so I like to praise. I like to sing, to be honest.
Oh,
I like
amazing,
singing.
amazing. There's a liberation that comes with that.
I love that. So
Yeah.
I often encourage actors to sing. I'm like, hey, it's good for our voices. Like,
Let
get
it out
down
there.
and let that voice out and sing. So I like the praise songs as well because I can kind of join in and sing and really open up my heart to it. So I like a lot of music, to be honest. For Rose, I listen to a lot of classical music, and I found it very. There's something about the Beethoven, for instance, like the violin concertos and music I wasn't that familiar with.
Yeah.
But I found the complexity of the music very, very, very inspiring. I found like all the different sounds, the different instruments coming together to make this incredibly powerful sound. That also helped me because I felt at times Rose's mind works like that.
Yeah.
So there's like the high notes and there's the bass and there's different things and that helped me actually to learn the lines.
Yeah.
And when I started to see it as a kind of a symphony of sounds and different voices coming together inside her. So yeah, so that and I learned a lot about classical music, which was really amazing. So yeah, if that answers it, yeah.
It truly does, and I'm blown. I'm blown. So, leather or lace?
Ooh, it was lace, it's become leather.
Oh, okay. We are allowed to. A girl is allowed to change her mind a couple of times.
No, exactly. I think it's all about transformation. You should love lace, lots of ruffles and lace, loved all of that. As I'm getting older, I find kind of the ruffles and the lace, I love it for young women. Oh, I always notice like a woman wearing a lovely, ruffly lace shirt. I'm always like, oh, I love it so much, but it's not for me anymore. I find now the leather. Yeah,
Right.
I'm enjoying it.
A stiletto or a pump?
Oh, I love a stiletto, but I've got big legs, so I don't have the kind of leg for a stiletto. Love stilettos, so I admire them from afar. I'll always watch. I'll always go, I look so stunning, but unfortunately, I wouldn't go with a pump. I'm not a pump girl either.
So you gotta have a little platform.
A wedge or a platform or a cowboy boot. Like that.
And you've got nice.
Yeah.
She's got nice cowboy boots on right now. If you're at shoe cam,
No, they're super cool. They're super cool. I like them too. Yeah.
Part of what I really wanted to do with this interview was to also just show how human people are and just how human we can be. And I love the fact that there was a reference that you made about how we can be all things. We can't just be one thing. And one thing that I wanted to ask before we go, these are the two big questions that I wanted to ask you, Camilla. What is the greatest gift that we can give ourselves?
Thozama, for me, it has been the journey of faith. It's been about a soulful experience and a conversation with God. But if I had to answer that more specifically, I would say, Thozama, the ability to be able to reflect on yourself, to be able to stand. You said something so beautifully now. You said about like standing on our stories. And Thozama, one of the things as a teacher that I have seen is that if the ground upon which someone is standing, okay, so if you want a young person or a person, an artist, to make a leap of faith, right, to kind of, when I say leap of faith, just at seeing themselves in a new way, taking on reframing a new way of thinking, if you want that to happen, I've noticed that the ground from which they're departing needs to feel solid.
Wow.
If the ground's doing this, right, the natural human instinct is to retreat to a place of safety. And sometimes our places of safety are familiar, but they're not growing us anymore. And in fact, sometimes they're prisons.
Wow.
I certainly know that. In moments where anxiety was actually a place of that I knew as much as it was an awful place to be, but it was a place I knew myself as that person. So that was always like the retreat place. And I've begun to recognize that if the ground feels solid underneath your feet, if that person is standing and going, oh yeah, I'm here today. Oh wow. Okay, shoo. Okay, that's feeling okay. Ground feels steady, right? Then you'll see them go, suddenly there's a new movement into something else, right? So I think that the greatest gift has been about recognizing this is who I am, this is the story, right? With its pains, with its, right, all of what's been, stand on that, right? And I'm here today, okay, right? And I'm not only fear, and I'm not only anxiety. Yes, that's there, but it's not all, right? There's a whole lot else as well.
True.
And so I'm going to stand. And then, so I suppose to answer it, that might be my answer.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm just resting in the dignity of that moment, because that is beautiful. And what's the greatest gift that we can give each other?
Respect. Respect for one another. By that I don't mean respect as in, putting anybody on a pedestal. It's recognizing each other, standing together, on ground together, and celebrating that. And in order to do that, you have to do it in yourself.
True.
That's part of the journey that I recognize. If you're hiding and you're ashamed and you're frightened and you're retreating and you're numb, then you are so introverted and so inside that it's really hard to meet somebody.
True.
Right?
True.
To actually really have a conversation, because actually you're totally turned inwards. So I think it's a process of acknowledging yourself, and then opens up the possibility for you to acknowledge others, right? And as we learn and reflect on ourselves, well, then we see our own weakness, we see our own struggle. So then it's that much more possible to be able to acknowledge somebody else's struggle, and to be able to recognize, okay, wow, I understand where you're coming from. Or at least we can have a conversation. So that's very important. The idea that we can't meet each other on level ground makes me so sad.
I know, right? I know.
Sad.
And what makes me sad is that we have to wrap up this interview. Do not forget to give us an indication of what you think, what color matches the personality of the amazing Camilla Waldman. Is she a green, an orange? Is she a green, an orange, or a crimson, or a purple? And all you have to do is to sound off on the comment section down below, and you can stand a chance to win 2 tickets to the High Tea, a rose by any other name, inclusive of a masterclass by none other than Camilla Waldman herself. And that is how we wrap up this episode of Beyond the Story. Catch us next time. Is there anything you want to say before we leave?
Nothing, just thank you.
Well,
thank you.
We're just gonna...
Thank you to the team.
Well, we're just
Thank you
gonna scoot out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Camilla.
Thank you. Thank
This
you.
was beautiful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.